And good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. As you saw, Dr. Pandit was right there on the screen. But we want to say welcome to everybody that's joining in and tuning in tonight for this special, very special edition of Science, Philosophy, and Metaphysics with Dr. Pandit. And well, today is going to be, some of you may have been chomping the bit and you've done this before, but guess what? Today is the day we are doing Q&As. This is your opportunity to ask Dr. Pandit any questions relevant to the program that he's been sharing and the lessons. I pray that you've all been learning along the way to how to share with those who do not know Christ, ever opened up a Bible, they're agnostic, atheists, but really open up just through those elements of science, philosophy, and metaphysics, and having discussions that will lead and follow the path of their questioning and pointing them to the awesomeness of God. So we thank you so much for your consistency. Thank you for so many of you who have watched the program from the very beginning. We don't take your support lightly. And for those of you, of course, because there's a time continuum for us, you'll be watching the replay of this. We still want to say thank you to you and an opportunity for you to also send in your questions accordingly. So you may hear a question from somebody tonight, and it may spark a question for you, but you're not able to share it live with us tonight. But please send us an email, and I'll put that on the screen a little bit later, where you can submit your questions, and Dr. Pandit will be able to answer those at a later program. So in the meantime, as always, take the opportunity to share this link. Come on, be our disciples tonight. So share it on your social media if you can, with your friends and family, and let them know, hey, here at Living Minded Church, we got some amazing programs, and we want to make sure you're aware of it. Also, speaking of programs, if you're not a member of our text alerts, I'm going to put that on the screen right now, so you'll know what programs are coming up on at Living Minded Church, as well as on Power of the Lamb as well. Here, join the text club, the Living Manna Online Church Text Club. Text 84576 to get real-time text announcements, alerts, and reminders from Living Manna Church Online, and you will be up on the know of what's happening here at Living Manna Church. And do me a favor, if those of you have already been part of our text family, can you put a 1, I'm going to grab that from Pastor Mize and Tante. Hey, can you put a 1 in the chat if you're on Facebook or YouTube channels, LinkedIn, and if you've gotten text alerts and they are timed for you guys to get know exactly what's going on in our programs, please put a 1 in the chat. We'd appreciate that feedback. And in the meantime, I'm going to open this up right now to thank you. I see one already starting to come through. Thank you so much. So as we said, this is the question and answer portion. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on your questions. And so I want to actually do a little interview, just a quick interview with Dr. Pandit about the program right now and what he has, felt about the series and how it's been going for him presenting each Thursday. There have been a couple of Thursdays, with he's not been able to be here, or I'm not being here. I think it may be 1 or something like that, but we have tried to be very consistent with making sure you have that one-to-one, as best you can, one-to-one contact with Dr. Pandit. So Dr. Pandit, it's been a few months. We have been on this journey, the invitation to come search with me and search with us. What has that experience been like? And let's kind of even piggyback before that, when the opportunity was presented to do this program and teach this series, because we don't know when it's going to end. Only you will know, or say the Lord knows when it's going to end. What has been your real plan as far as how we're going to do this, particularly through this type of vehicle?
So, is your question what I felt when I was asked to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Oh, yeah. I've been doing it for nearly 20 years now. I've been to 5 continents, kind of all over the world, mainly on secular university campuses, where these questions, especially the beginning ones like, is there a God? How do we know? Is there any way that he has given us any evidence? These are the big questions out there, and it's a very controversial topic when you
Mm.
go out there. With us, it is clear, but when you go out there, it's very controversial. And I find that some of these questions are actually among us as well. We accept it, but then suddenly when we are asked about it, we say, "Oh, really? Is it so?" And then we kind of question it.
Yep.
So whenever I am asked to do any series, I am, in a sense, I feel called. I feel that I have been asked not just by the organizers, but by the one who actually owns all this truth. He really wants each of us to understand it well and to be so clear about it that we have a stable life and our hope is very stable. So whenever I'm asked to do this, I feel very privileged. I feel very honored in one sense because each of us, you, me, and everyone else, each of us is very valuable in ourselves. So for me to speak to somebody who's as valuable as you, it's an honor. It's a very special privilege. And when I do that, I have noticed something that's it's a cliche, but it comes out very clearly when you do it yourself. The one who learns the most, guess who? Is the one who talks and presents and prepares. And that's why anytime anybody asks me, I am just so thrilled. And I feel it's a tremendous privilege for me to speak especially on this topic.
Awesome, awesome. So when you are laying out are you still following that blueprint? Like you said, you've spoken all over the world, university campuses, secular campuses, but now doing it through this church model. Is there anything different in terms of this type of presentation that you've discovered about doing it this way?
There's very little difference in the basic knowledge. Uh, because the questions they have out there are actually the questions that we also have, which we need to settle and answer. So, at the basic level of the material, there's no difference. But, however, when we talk together, we have an attitude or should have an attitude that we are going to absorb as much as possible so that we can uh, process that in our minds and make it our own with the understanding that when we then speak to somebody else, it will be clear, it will be understood. We will have the satisfaction of placing it on the table clearly. Now, that doesn't mean everyone is going to agree. They may not agree, but they will see the point you have made, and that's the most important. So, my approach to us in this setting was listen, we need to change a little bit about the way we think and talk, especially.
Mm,
We use our Christian jargon, our cliches, our what we call lingo,
mm,
but we need to change that a bit because they don't understand our lingo.
mhm.
So we should shift it so that it's clear in terms that they understand. So, in that sense, it was a little different, but otherwise, the material was about the same.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Um, all right, let's see. Okay, well, thank you, Andrea. Someone's watching from New Brunswick, Canada. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to take our first question here. It's coming from Kay, who is our YouTube watcher. I'm going to post it for everyone to see. And Kay says, if you had to put spirituality in a category, what would you put it in exclusivity or pluralism?
Spirituality is actually the ability of the human mind to connect to spiritual things, which is metaphysical. In other words, goes beyond our natural existence. So there is not, you cannot classify it as exclusive or plural in any sense, actually. At that point, it is common to everyone. Spirituality has been given as a part of uh, the human organism itself. So, in other words, as a being, as a human being, I have physical functions, mental functions, social functions, and spiritual functions. These four everyone has. So it's not whether it's exclusive or plural, spirituality itself is given to everyone. Now, when you get to the actual spiritual conversation, then we have differences because some say that this is the way you're supposed to look at it, and somebody else would say, no, this is the way we are supposed to look at it. So, in spirituality itself, there is no such thing as exclusivity or plurality. But when you discuss the details of somebody's approach to it, then we have to ask whether he is saying that only his way is the right way, that becomes exclusive, or whether he says that his way is the same as somebody else's and equal to somebody else's, then that becomes pluralistic. So spirituality itself, there's no such thing as pluralism, but the way we discuss about the details of our individual relationship in that spirituality to the God that we worship, that becomes either exclusive or plural.
Okay, and she has a follow up, and I'm actually was looking down because I want to make sure because we have the questions that people have sent in prior to that. I want to make sure we're ready for that. Okay, so her the follow up is I guess the clarity was I'm asking in the sense of a person saying they are not religious, they are spiritual.
Oh, that's a very good question because many of them say, I'm doing spiritual things. I'm not religious. You have to discuss then the concept of spirituality and the concept of religiosity. And that's what I was trying to mention, but these two words actually clarify it. When you are religious, you are just dealing with that portion of your being by which you address that which is metaphysical, beyond the natural, beyond the physical things that we see around us. That is being spiritual. You are dealing with something that is out there. Religious is very, in our terms, it becomes like it is a description of your beliefs. In other words, your spirituality now has become structured. And when it's become structured, you have to give it a structure. And in that structure, you will have to say, we believe this, not that. We believe this, not that. And once you do that, then whatever you say you do believe becomes your religion. So from spiritual activity, we get our religious ideas, and those religious ideas then can be asked whether it is exclusive or whether it is plural. But as far as spirituality is concerned, everyone is that. In fact, one of the religions has a very good term for it. The Hindu religion has a very good term. It is called Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma means it is not only universal, it's everlasting. That idea is what we call spirituality. It is everlasting, it is universal, everyone has it. So as far as being religious, yes, we can be religious. But remember, every religious person who says he is religious, in his or her mind, always has a structure. Nobody has a non structured spirituality. That doesn't make any sense because you're shifting out then from physics to metaphysics. And once you do that, you have to avoid then what is physical. And that is what we are saying is spiritual. So when you go there, you have to have some structure. I have not seen anyone yet who is truly religious, or rather who is truly spiritual, who does not have religious ideas.
Hmm.
Everyone has that. So when we say we are religious, not, or rather spiritual and not religious, I would discuss it a little further with them.
Awesome, awesome. And Kay does she gave you a thank you. Thank you so much, Kay, for your question. That was really, really good.
Good.
Very, very good. Thank you. Okay, so this is an opportunity still for you to place your questions in the chat. Please feel free. Anything related to this program, we would greatly appreciate it over this series. And I know also it's been a very heavy it's like having a heavy meal that you're not used to having because of the concentration of information that you've been sharing from the beginning, Dr. Pandit, particularly when it talks about the religions and we talk about Hinduism and the various gods. I mean the multiplicity of gods and things like that. Um, and as we've been going along with that, the way that you have been blessed to break it down and to make those where's the line of demarcation between the beliefs of multiple gods and then making it very concentrated as to why some things are still, as you said, has still religious connotations. They're spiritual, but they still have religious connotations that match up with Christianity, or that, or a Christ follower or a God follower, which has been very interesting for me personally. It's like, wow, okay. I was thinking to myself, hmm, I've you could almost see why someone would be another religion, and particularly when it talks about being a better person or better life or a higher way of thinking, a global mindset. Those are still religious or spiritual, thought processes, and so definitely has opened up a way to for us to think a little bit deeper.
Yes, when you look at the word spiritual, you are dealing with something that is different from non spiritual. So you are stating something. And once you come to that level of thinking, or that dimension of thinking, then it is not possible to simply think of something that is so nebulous and cloudy that it has no features. And the moment you give it a feature, you have to borrow it from religion. You cannot borrow it from the idea of spirituality. It has to be religion that actually promotes spirituality. In other words, a friend of mine had asked me nearly the same question and said, I don't believe in what they meant by religion was, the organized religion. So I said, have you ever considered what would have happened if we did not have organized religion? He scratched his head for a little while and he said, no. I said, I've thought about it.
Mm,
Spirituality would have died. If we did not have organized religion, because organization means more than two people are there and they are supporting one another,
mm.
and that keeps the movement going. If we are completely separate, totally, and no religion at all, only spirituality, we would have lost the whole concept of spirituality. So it is the religions that have maintained the idea of spirituality at all. So some of us think we don't like that. No, that's the basis. It is really the fundamental way in which humans deal with spirituality, and that is through religion. And if religion is not organized, it will be disorganized. And anything that disorganized will eventually break down. It's almost like the second law of thermodynamics.
Yeah.
Anything that exists, that the the direction is downwards. So we must not try to make too much of a difference between these two. What you can say about organized religion is that in that organization, we don't bow to the people who are in the positions of leadership. No, we bow only to the truth of the matter. And that way, yes, we may make a difference.
I want to stay here for a second, because on that train of thought. So if we are talking about a society that is devoid of, we call it the Ten Commandments, as an organized church, and from this we give that type, the Ten Commandments. You'll open up a Bible, and depending on how it's broken down into labels of chapter labels, it'll say Ten Commandments or something like that, or the law. And when you think of it, if you take the law itself and elements of the law of, you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't kill, you shouldn't bear false witness, you shouldn't lie, you shouldn't cheat on, you shouldn't commit adultery, and you shouldn't covet. wanting somebody else's belongings or whatever.
Okay.
And so, but using that, not just stating that, but I'm just thinking in terms of a moral internal compass, because everybody, even if you don't think of yourself as spiritual or religious, put it that way, you're still a sense of an internal right and wrong. And so when you're talking about that internal right or wrong, um, even our judicial system is set up to quote unquote uphold the law. You shouldn't break into a store because hey, the store is closed. If you didn't buy it, you shouldn't steal. You get arrested. The whole 9 yards. Blah blah blah. You shouldn't kill. Um, those are they call them civil laws, but they're still based off of a sense of a moral compass. And so the question is, when you're talking about what would it be like devoid of a moral compass, I'm going to just, these are my terms, not yours. Um, to me, there would be absolute anarchy. Because if someone says, I like Dr. Pandit's car, I want it, Dr. Pandit's worked, tirelessly to purchase his car. He needs transportation, but I want his car. I don't have, there's no law, so I should be able to take it. Inside of you, it's like, well, I've been wronged. It's not yours, it's mine. I lawfully worked for it, I paid for it, but you feel you have a right to take it. The other person can say something else. So let's talk about the possibility of just complete anarchy, all in so many different ways.
You said a few things there when
I
you
know I
bring
did.
it.
I know I did. Yeah.
Yeah, and we should try not to.
I know. I know. I thought about that too.
Because it gets
Yeah.
off to too many different angles, and then but I think the fundamental point of what you are trying to say is really valid. I'll put it this way as an illustration. The plants which have green leaves, they go through a process called photosynthesis
Mm-hmm.
that give us oxygen. Now, you don't have to believe that the leaves give us oxygen in order to breathe. You don't have to believe it at all. But when you look at it, you can't breathe without it. Did you get that difference?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You do not have to believe that photosynthesis gives you oxygen. But without photosynthesis, you can't breathe oxygen. So now let's put it to what we are trying to say. You don't have to believe in God to have a moral life, but you cannot have morality without God. You don't have to believe in Him. But the point we're trying to make is that without God, you can't even have the concept of morality, for the simple reason that the word we use for morality, for example, is you ought to do. The word ought, you should do. The moment you use the word ought to do, you are referring to some kind of a standard
Mm-hmm.
that the person and you have agreed. Otherwise, the word ought will make no sense at all.
Mm-hmm.
You ought to sit up straight, for example. From where do we get that idea? From physiology. So, in other words, physiology is apart from you and me. So, in other words, whenever you use the word ought, we are automatically stating that there is a standard that governs both you and me. Now, when you go further, if there are two communities that are making different decisions, then there should be another level above them, that from where they get the very idea of reason and judgment. So when you go higher and higher, you will have to come to a place where there has to be a final resting place of all that is either good or bad. You can't have it different. Once you have it different, then the difference will go completely across all sections of society. And like you said, the word anarchy then comes in. So the opposite of anarchy It's not I'll do my own thing. So I want freedom. No, the opposite of anarchy is that we will all agree that there is one standard which defines how we will behave. And that without that standard, we have no way of doing, of agreeing and having a good conversation. Let me give another example. You know, the 13 colonies way back then, they declared independence, and we have the Declaration of Independence. I mean, those of you who are not United States citizens will still don't understand. But because the reason and the basis of declaring independence was not on the basis of a government. Because if it was the basis of a government, then those 13 colonies were committing treason.
Mm,
But they appealed. If you read the Declaration of Independence, they appealed to a source that was above the British Crown.
mm,
And only then, where they say, we'll hold you responsible because there is a law above you, sir. There is a law above you. And according to that law, we are appealing to that law. And because of that law, we will declare independence. In other words, humans, when you want to really live in a certain freedom, which also is governed by laws and rules, we have to appeal to a law and a rule that is above us. We cannot say, I'll have it my way. Because if you do that, there will be definitely anarchy, because my way and your way and everybody's way will be all different.
yeah.
So, what we have described here is you don't have to believe that. But if that is the truth of the matter, then your belief and your truth has combined, and that's the best way to live. Not your way, your belief and truth going in opposite ways. Your belief must be in line with the truth of the matter. So when my belief is in line with that ultimate reference point, the ultimate standard, then I have lived a life that is stable and which others can see is stable and which will be a blessing in society.
So, in line with that, when we go back, I'm going back to an earlier program as we first started, and we're talking about the, sort of that Big Bang theory. How we came into existence, and the endless times. And if you have not seen, I implore you, those of you who are watching, and those of you who watch this in the future, please go back to the first two episodes, 2 to 3 series within the series, and Dr. Pandit, we were talking about how long in terms of that process would have taken, and if you had to go from one point of the universe to another point of view, how many light years it would take you to go from one to the other, and you still wouldn't be where you need to get to. It is absolutely fascinating. Um, but piggybacking to the moral compass, I'm sure this discussion has probably happened before. How do those who believe in the theory of evolution make um, come to terms with a a moral compass without anything else? Like, how did that? Because like a moral compass is not coming from Big Bang. There has to be some emotional, mental um,
So,
intelligence. Okay, that would even have that integrated into the creative process, if I'm saying this correctly.
yeah, once again, I think you're going on more than one point. So,
Okay.
what really was the question?
The question is, if you're an evolutionist and you believe in this theory of evolution and everything that comes along with it, how do you come to know or appreciate those things like, not stealing, not killing, because those thought
Okay,
processes.
okay, not too many,
There we
not
go.
too many,
Yeah,
just one
got
or
it
two.
right there.
Yeah. So how does they come to that? They come to that by their theory, which says that for for survival you need certain things. So when the original organism had to survive and started thinking and living, then the process of how to live the best so they will survive came in, and that is where morality came in. So they have a way of introducing it but they have absolutely no way of describing the origin. Can you see that?
Hmm. Yeah.
You can introduce it reasonably with the theory of evolution, but that does not explain where it came from. Just because you introduced it doesn't mean you have described where it came from. And the origin is the actual point of understanding our existence. It is not the in between stages. In between stages, we have a whole lot of theories. And some are good and some are not so good. Some have a good backing in science, some have no backing in science. But that's not the point, really. You must be able to describe in good, clear terms what is the origin. And that is where I think the theory of evolution completely falls flat.
Mm.
It starts at the middle point, and from there it sounds okay because you can give a good reasonable explanation and say because of this or because of that. But to ask where it came from, there's absolute silence because there's no way. Just consider you use the word big bang,
Mm.
and we think that the big bang sounds good, but really you ask a physicist about big bang, it has to start with a certain point.
Yeah.
That point expanded in the big bang, and when you ask what is the laws that govern that, total silence. In fact, they tell you that there is no physical law that is found inside there. So we have to ask then, where did the laws come from then? If that was the actual point of origin, and there were no physical laws, laws of physics did not exist in a singularity, then where did it come from? And that is where I am willing to say that that theory can never, ever explain origin.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to start with the questions that we had that come in earlier, and then I'm going to do a couple questions that we received in the chat. This was from, okay, let's see. I think this is from Jermaine Ellis. This is from last 2 weeks ago. Is it possible for us to be one with God?
I think we answered that the last time.
Okay,
Yeah, we did.
okay, all right.
Or you can ask that person. We did. I think we went spent a few minutes actually
Okay,
on that. Yeah.
okay. And the next one was this is from Michelle Watson Grant. And Michelle, if you're on tonight, we're answering your questions. It says, good evening. How would you explain the light in the first part of Genesis 1 when the text states that the sun, moon, and stars were created days later?
Yeah. According to the days, the sun, moon, and stars came on the fourth day. So, what happened on the first, second, and third day? We have to agree that once some things are created, anything that is created is not original. The one who creates is original, not the one who created. So we have to still ask the question, where did the sun get its light? It is not original, it's created. The same thing happens actually when you go backwards to the first. The point of origin is not the point of origin of light, is not the sun, moon, and stars. Of course, the stars are also suns. The point of origin of light is nothing created. It had to come from that which creates. That is the origin of light. So if we clearly differentiate between those two,
Mm-hmm.
the sun and moon are actually created with light so that they could give light. We still have to ask ourselves, where did they get the light from?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to go back then to the origin of light itself. And God says He is the origin. So when He said, let there be light, what He was doing was bringing in a feature of Himself to a to the darkness of a planet.
Mm-hmm. I like
So
that.
he brought light that. He brought light. Now we can see what's there. Oh my, it's all void. There is no form. Those are the words, void without any form. So now he starts working on the actual point of making the earth livable. So the first part of first day, was him just bringing the concept and the physical idea and the actual point from his own source of light. From where then, when the sun, moon, and all the other things came about, they also got there from the same source of the light that came out in the first place. Do you know something else? The story of this creation ends with the story of a recreation. If you go to Revelation,
Mm-hmm.
there it says there's a world, new earth. You don't need the sun.
Because he's the light.
That's exactly why, because they
Mhm.
say the Lamb and God is the light. So
Yeah.
that's the light of day one
Hmm.
that came on this earth.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. That's pretty powerful. The next question is: I'd also like to know if, and this came from Michelle Watson Grant again, if we can give sufficient evidence of God's existence, can we also make logical arguments about the lack of consciousness of death? I repeat the question again. If we can give sufficient evidence of God's existence, can we also make logical arguments about the lack of consciousness in death?
Yeah, that's again a good question, because it follows really the same pattern. When we go to the question of God's existence, that's a metaphysical question. It's not in our hands to whether it's an apple or an orange. We can look at them and figure out what it is. No, it's way out there, outside. So we do what in metaphysics is called abductive reasoning, meaning you make two theories all the time, two theories all the time. Did you get that?
Mhm.
Anytime you have a controversy, make the two theories. So when it's the question of God, we made two theories. There is God, there is no God. So there were two theories. Now, what we did at that point was look at both of them and then looked at science, philosophy, science, reason, and logic. Those are the only things we had in our hands. And we found all the evidences for and against either of them. And we put it in columns and we did a study. You do the same thing with this. Make two theories. For example, a person is unconscious at death, no more contact, unconscious. Theory two, a person is conscious, so we can have contact. So now we have two theories. And in the beginning, we should not choose which one is correct and wrong. We should just look at those two and then ask ourselves, where shall we go to find out the information? If you're reached a point where the Bible is the reasonable reference point, then we take these two theories to that Bible. That's why we do not talk about this part without becoming first Christians. In other words, you have to settle that first. Is the Bible a reasonable reference point?
Hmm.
And so when you settle that, then you take these two. Look at all the verses that talk about the consciousness still remaining after the person dies. Look at all the references in the Bible which says the person does not have any more conscious when he is gone, and you put them into your columns on one side or the other. I believe the weight of evidence will be so clear that there'll be no question.
Mhm.
Yes. So you go ahead and try it out. Just put those two theories. Remember the first step, always make two clear cut theories. There is consciousness after death, there is no consciousness after death. And then read all the verses, put them on either side, and you'll find the evidence very clear. So, my response, really, in short, would be of course, we can show the weight of evidence as clearly as whether there is a God or no God, even with this matter, because now we have a reference point, which is the Bible. And when you go there, it makes it clear.
Awesome, thank you. And Michelle, I hope if you're watching this, you received an answer that was satisfactory to your heart and mind. And so let's go to another question, Dr. Pandit, in our live chat here. Let's see. We're going to go to, hmm, all right, this is from Monique Reed. How do you make sense of carbon dating and the six carbon dating and the 6 days of creation. I think 6,000 years is when sin started, not when God created. But what do you say?
Once again, Monique, what you do is make two theories. Our usual tendency is to make one theory and ask a question on that. That is not really how you approach this, so that in a metaphysical discussion we come to the best truth of the matter. You always make two theories. So the question is, you are saying sin started at 6,000 years and that's not when God created. Well, okay, then make two theories. Did sin start at 6,000 or was it created? So we have must make two theories. God created at 6,000 years. God did not create at 6,000 years. Got those two? God created 6,000 years ago. God did not create 6,000 years. The moment you say that, then you have to put another number. If not 6,000, then when? So you see, you are clarifying your question now. Is it 6,000 years or is it more? And if it is more, what is the more number? So when you do that, you will come to this. It's either less than 10,000 years or it goes to the old Earth theory, which shifts it out, the Earth itself, to 4.53 billion years. So now you have two theories. The Earth is less than 10,000 years old, or it is 4.5 billion years old. You know, it's a big difference,
Mm,
huge difference. To give you an idea what the difference is, if you make a line and on that you put millimeter marks, millimeters, I mean those bitty ones, millimeter marks, and you stretch the line, the 10,000 years will be at millimeter one, and the 4.5 billion years will be at the end of a line that goes clear across a Olympic race track and then goes another 50 meters beyond that. There will be sitting the 4.5 billion years. So all I'm saying is a big difference. Once there's a huge difference, then what we do is divide the line into three parts. One is on this side towards the 10,000, one is towards the 4.5 billion, and the rest is in between. And now we have three portions to look at all the scientific evidence and put them into these three categories and look for the weight of evidence, and you'll find the weight of evidence pretty clear that it is towards the less than 10,000 years. Of course, there are other things like carbon dating that we will go beyond. But remember, carbon dating is a radioisotope. It's called radiometric dating. That is a different discussion. If you would like, we can go to that discussion as well. But the question of whether it's short or whether it is long period can be settled in the way I've just mentioned. And when you look at the evidences, there is scientific evidence that not only our Earth, but our solar system and the universe itself, our observable universe itself, has evidences that it is short, it is not a very prolonged process. Of course, there are other things on the other side that are show that it's long. So you need to address those as well. So this is a pretty big question. So in short, making sense of the carbon dating is another question, which I will answer by saying all radiometric dating is based on assumptions which cannot be proven. So, a radiometric method of dating will be good as long as you recognize that those assumptions haven't been set. When that question comes in, then you cannot use this as a set date or set period. You have to say it depends on one, two, and three. And if those are not set, then you can say it looks that way, but you can't say it is. That's the difference. You can't say it is 4.5 billion years. It appears so. But the moment you say it appears so, then you should give the other side also to appear so. And it does appear so in some scientific studies in which the Earth is less than 10,000 years. So we've got both. And I believe if you look at the weight of evidence, it goes to the side of less than 10,000 years.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate that question. Here's one, Dr. Pandit, for you personally. It says, Dr. Pandit or Dr. Hatton from one of our YouTube watchers. I'm going to put the question here on the screen for everybody to see. So Deborah Haley asks, Doctor, have you ever met someone that was so totally against hearing about God that you had to walk away from talking with them? And if yes, what was the experience like?
That's, you're asking me personally? Yes. You see, finally, a belief is a very private and personal choice. You cannot make a person believe, no matter how much of evidence you place on the table. Belief is a choice. So a belief is not related to the quality of the evidence you are bringing. You can believe something that has good evidence. You can believe something that has no evidence at all. You can also believe something that has evidence to the contrary. It's your choice. So, in my experience, I have seen all three. I've seen people who believe when there's good evidence, they grab at it. Oh, wow, thank you. And some people who will go to something that has absolutely no evidence at all and still they say, I want to believe that. And some others who say, no matter what you present as belief and evidence for your belief, I simply cannot accept it. So, have I met people who are completely closed the door totally? So, we had to just say, you have your belief and mine. Of course, I meet many of them. In fact, the majority out there, when you go to the secular settings out there, not to your Sabbath school lesson, go out there, most of them will just slowly and push you off and say, no way, I'm not even going to discuss this at all. So, in those circumstances, I respect their decision and I say, anytime you want to discuss it, I'll do it. But when you say no, I will walk away. So then my job is to just continue being friends, and inwardly I do pray. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the only two things I can do after that. So yes, I have met many, many who just completely shut the door. And when you go away, you do feel in your heart, I wish he would open the door just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Give me just a little chance. Because that is the way God does it. See, he's standing at the door, knocking. That's Revelation, the third chapter, and verse 20. I stand at the door and knock. I will never barge in. When I knock, if you open, I'll come in. If not, I'm on the outside. So he gives us the choice. So, yes, I've met them, and it does kind of, you do feel it in your heart when somebody says, I'm not going to listen anymore. But you cannot do anything about it. Take it to God in prayer because God then says, that's not your business now. I'll get somebody else to do that. I'll get somebody else to approach him. You step away and you be nice and you just continue praying.
Awesome. And she did respond, and I'll just put it here for everyone to see. I see the Bible can't be wrong. Hopefully, we can have another discussion on the subject. Awesome. Leaving that door open always. Dr. Pandit, so we've this is our first Q&A session over these past couple of months, and we're getting ready to turn the corner to the next installment of the series next Thursday, Lord willing. So, what can we expect?
No, next Thursday, we are having a break from this, I believe.
Okay,
So we will ask Pastor Ivor and Atonte what they would like to do, and then we will inform you.
okay,
Right now we will have a break. For me also to have a break after about how many 18 sessions we've had together.
that's
They
okay.
were really good sessions. I really
Mhm,
enjoyed them. Thank
mhm.
you. But I think we will have a break and then we'll see what how God has for us.
Okay, awesome. But I would ask the question, if you're open to another Q&A session again, we'll be in contact to find out exactly when we can schedule that because I know there will be a lot of questions, particularly as people continue to watch the programs. So, Just as a reminder, if you've not watched all of the series up to this point, please, they are archived right on the Living Manna Church YouTube channel, as well as on the Power of the Lamb YouTube channel as well. It's also on the, I believe, archived the videos on Facebook as well. So please, they are there for you to go back. If there's a subject that you missed, it is all there. And please be those uh, be those little evangelists just sharing the link with someone, even if it's a discussion. Maybe you may have had somebody at work
Mhm.
had it on a topic. Would be so great to say, hey, you know what? I just saw a program about this, and do you mind if I share this link with you? Um, and just let the message do what it does. So, Dr. Pandit, I mean, really, it's been awesome, and we'll see exactly what our next time will be when the Lord says so. And thank you so much for your diligence. And to everyone here that's been following, we really appreciate it. We're looking forward to more wonderful programs like this, particularly maybe something different with Dr. Panda. He will let us know. In the meantime, please make sure that you are still up on what's happening with us here at the Living Manor Church, online church. We keep it going here. So, once again, hey, be a part of our text family. Text LMOC to 84576 to get real time text announcements, alerts, reminders from Living Manor Church online. And also, don't forget, hey, if you want to make sure that you're part of what we're doing here, make sure you email me any questions for Dr. Pandit or anything about Living Manor Church. Please, you can put my email right here for you. You can email, even though it's for Dr. Pandit, email Patrice at livingmanna.live, or any other questions about Living Manna Church. You would be a part of the church, or even right now, if you are on here and you would like to just have Bible studies, I'm going to put our Bible worker. His name is Rick. I'm going to put his email here just a second so you can have that. And I want to thank our prayer warriors that have been in the chat. We have seen several prayers posted in the chat. And so thank you so much for responding to our prayer requests.
So, to those who are saying thank you, I would say you are most welcome. It has been my pleasure and my privilege to have spoken with you and interacted with you. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So if you're interested also, like I said, in Bible studies, Bible work, you can see Rick Dingman. His email is there, and you can just put it right there at livingmannabw@gmail.com. That's livingmannabw, stand for Bible worker, at gmail.com. So really, Dr. Pandit, it's been a privilege. It has been an absolute privilege, and looking forward to more ministry programs with you in the coming, soon coming, maybe season or whatever the program will be. I would love to be that wingman for you. In the meantime, everyone, please make sure that you share and let everybody know what's going on here at Living Manor Church. And we will see you next time. We'll see you this weekend for Sabbath school and the Sabbath worship service here on Living Manor and on YouTube channels and everywhere we are on social media. We will be here for you. But until the next time, God bless you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. And don't forget, it's still okay to come search with us. It's okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Pandit.
You're welcome.